Now, I've made quite a few videos on this channel sharing how I've built this portfolio, how I've made this money, how I've invested this money, and what's my plan and strategy to build this portfolio. But this video is going to be slightly different because I do want to share the principles and specifically the spiritual principles and learnings that I've used to build and grow this portfolio, because I think that's a key component in helping me not just stay consistent with the portfolio, but also to stay peaceful and happy irrespective of what's happening with my portfolio. And that's allowed me to maintain my long-term passive index investing strategy. And I've built this over time. Obviously, no one is perfect. I've started building my portfolio even before I was thinking about building my portfolio. I was just thinking about making some money. I was thinking about trading. I was thinking about how I can, buy and sell on swing trades, make some short-term gains in that regard. But overall, my philosophy has changed as my life has changed as well. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I have responsibilities. I also have this core need for freedom. I don't want to be a slave to my own portfolio, and I want to enjoy my life outside of the portfolio, because life rarely exists outside of all of these charts and numbers. So I want to be detached, and I want to be away from the portfolio for most of the time, and I want to be away from the market fluctuations. And even if I know what's happening in the market, I'm now in a position where I'm not moved by what's happening in the market. And I think to reach this situation, it's not just about investing and which funds to pick, and should you pick an ETF, an index fund, or should you invest in the mid cap universe or small cap or large cap. It's more about what are the spiritual core foundations that you've built for yourself that will help you stay consistent on whatever game you've chosen to play. Now, you could choose any game to play, and I'm not the person to prescribe you to go for, let's say, index investing or passive investing, or to pick a specific mutual fund or index fund. But I can share these spiritual lessons that I've learned along the way that have really helped me in this journey of not just making this income, but also investing it, watching it grow, and it'll help me stick to this in the future as well. So let's get started. Okay. This is something that I've put together for you to share these thoughts with you. And I've put these thoughts together, tried to summarize it into 5 different lessons. So we're going to start with the first one. Now, before we even look at like specific lessons, I do want you to understand that this is a long-term game. So it's a game that I've been playing for a very long period of time, and it's a money game, right? So there are different games that we play in life, and overall I feel all of life as play, all of life as a game. There are different achievements that you have at different levels. So one core principle is that I don't take things very, very seriously. And I think that's really important to understand when I'm sharing these videos where I'm sharing all of this knowledge, or you might see it as knowledge, but what I see of it is learnings on my journey. So I'm sharing my journey because there is an opportunity to share the journey, and there's an opportunity for someone to pick up some of the things that have worked for me in the past, but I'm not taking it very seriously, right? So that's one internal mindset that I have, like I'm playing it as a game, right? And I know that it sounds easier to say when you have a bigger portfolio. For some people, this could be a big portfolio. For some people, it could be a very small portfolio. So that's the first principle, that it's just a number. It's not really a big or a small, or a 3 crore or a 2 crore or a 30,000 or a 3,000. That's not important. What's important is that there are certain principles that you're following, and it's a journey, because as you follow those principles of investing, the number will just keep growing big and big. But the point is, it's just a number. And I use this to not get too attached to the portfolio. And what happens is, when you are detached from the portfolio number, you are also detached from your social media feed of finfluencers. You're also detached from people telling you how much money you should make, because this is a common theme on social media as well as in our society, where people decide how much money we should make. In fact, I get comments on my videos of people asking me, what is the number at which I could retire, or how much money should I make? And that's the worst question to ask someone else. I cannot tell you how much money you need to make to retire, or how much money you need. I don't know your expenses. I don't know how much you need to be happy, for example. What are your desires? What are your lifestyle? So it's very personal, but also it's something that what you can control, I believe, is how much money you can earn. But in terms of how much money you can save, I don't try to limit that too much. So if I get too attached to my portfolio, coming back to that point, what will happen is I'll start following all of these recommendations of people who have a bigger portfolio than me, but they're on a different path. I'm on a different path. The other thing that's going to happen is I'm going to be always looking for a specific number to hit. Now, while I do have goals and I've made videos about this, and I do want a triple digit, crore portfolio, which of course with inflation may not be that much, but I'm not attached to it personally. So attachment doesn't mean that you don't own it. You can own it, but you don't have to get entangled by it. And that's something that I don't think about. So I don't think about the portfolio number on a day-to-day basis, or I'm not waking up and visualizing my huge portfolio to attract it from the universe or anything of that sort. I just have a system that I follow to consistently invest, and I know that eventually that system will work for me and the number will keep growing, but that's really in the back of my head. So owning it is okay, but getting attached to it is where the problems happen, right? So Buddha says the root of suffering is attachment. Once you are attached to whatever that thing is, maybe it's a portfolio, maybe it's your car, maybe it's your house, maybe even it's your family, like to some extent, if you attach, you will start clinging to it, and you'll start seeing all of these suffering that's happened. So my inner sort of secret to this calm and happy state, which you cannot see it, but I can feel it all the time, is that I'm not attached to all of these different assets that I own. And this is just my portfolio in equity in India that I share in these videos. I do have portfolios outside of this as well. This is by no means my complete portfolio, but all of those other assets that I own as well, I tend to be able to stay detached from that. The other thing is associating the identity. So I do not associate my personal identity with the portfolio. So anything that becomes big by social standards, it's very easy to associate your personal identity. So for example, I've published 2 books in marketing, and I have a course on growth marketing. I'm treated as a person that people look up to on LinkedIn when they are looking for growth marketing consulting. I also work as a fractional CMO for different brands. These are all things that I've done well by social standards in life. So it's very easy for me to fall into the trap of actually assigning my personal identity to being a growth marketing leader or growth marketing teacher. It's also very easy for me to tend to associate my personal identity with a 3.3 crores portfolio when I'm in my early 30s. So anything that you do fairly well in terms of social standards, you will have that kind of feedback from the society itself, which will make you associate yourself with that particular identity. And that's a trap. And the reason why I think that's a trap is because the moment you associate your identity with that thing, whether it's your portfolio, whether it's your job title, whether it's the books that you've written, whether it's the money that you've made, the projects that you've scaled, all of these things, the businesses you've grown, right? So I own 2 to 3 businesses at a point of time. I'm running 2 core businesses and experimenting with one at the moment. If I start associating with that, the moment I do that, I become a slave to that. So I want to stay a master to that, because these are all just tools. These are all just ways of living life. There are the core principles for me are just to stay happy and healthy and keep my family happy and healthy as well. Like outside of that, all of these other things are achievements by social standards, but there's no real need to associate your personal identity with the portfolio. Now, this may seem really off for someone watching a YouTuber who has a YouTube video showing their portfolio almost in every video, but that's the way of YouTube. That's the way of sharing a social proof or an authoritative proof that, since I've done this, I have some sense of how I've done this, and I'm sharing my journey with you. Now, the last part that I do is I just share my journey with you, but I think a lot of people tend to share or impose their opinions on you, which is why I don't really follow a lot of these influencers and YouTube influencers. And even if you have, even for you, I would, I cannot say that I would advise because I'm not that category of influencers, but I would share from my experience that if you've got the gist of what I'm doing with my portfolio, and if you think that those fundamentally have helped you enough, you should stop following me and unsubscribe to me as well. Because unless you're enjoying and reiterating on some of the concepts and that's helping you, there's no real need to follow the same kinds of thoughts that you've already learned from. So in the next few hundred videos, I may not share something that will completely skyrocket your portfolio growth and double your portfolio size in 6 months or whatever. So if you're waiting for that magic bullet to come from this channel, you can completely unsubscribe. But fundamental principles of the portfolio building as well as in other areas of life, I will keep sharing from my journey. So that's the only thing that you could stay for. But when you look at following finfluencers for the sake of finding that way to improve your portfolio, I don't think there's a lot of value in doing that. That's just my personal opinion. I do subscribe to some channels that I think have very good educational content just to improve my skills and know what's happening in the world. But honestly, I have not made any change on my personal portfolio except one, which is the addition of momentum ETFs. But apart, that's also not from watching videos, but rather from a deep conversation, one-on-one conversation that I had with someone. But apart from that, I think there's no real value that I've seen beyond a certain point. But the initial stages when I was learning, yes, YouTube was very helpful for me to understand the specific concepts in personal finance, right? So important thing here is to be a master of the portfolio rather than its slave, because once you become the slave of the portfolio, that's when you start making wrong decisions. Now, the main purpose of the portfolio, that's something that you'll have to remind yourself, because I see a lot of people who are sitting in their rooms, away from their families, away from nature all the time, looking at charts. That's not the purpose of all of this. The main purpose of building this portfolio is for it to become a tool for happiness and freedom. So on a day-to-day basis, I want my happiness and freedom. Yes, I might look at my portfolio when I'm making this one YouTube video per week, which I'm consistently trying to do it every Friday, because it's also a spiritual practice to be able to share what you've learned. But at the same time, just having that in mind, that the main purpose of this is happiness and freedom, helps me to ignore comments and everything. Like, there are some people who are commenting about why don't you put more money in small cap? You still have a long time to go. You'll get a little bit more return, but I know how it's going to affect my happiness and freedom in the back of my head when my portfolio split changes. So I just want to stick to the main purpose. Someone commented on one of the videos, which was very funny, that your investing style is like the senior citizen version of equity investing. And I love that, because that means that I can stick to it for a very long period of time. So when your main purpose is set, then all of the other things you can ignore, the distractions and noise, right? Which also brings me to rule number 3, which is to ignore the market's ups and downs. And this has been working beautifully well. And there are some people that I got on consulting calls with, my friends who need some advice on the market, and they told me, oh, there was a market, the market is going up because of the elections, what should we do? And I was like, oh, is the market going up because of the elections? I mean, it sounds obvious, but I didn't know that. And I have not really known when the markets have gone up and down. And I think that's a beautiful thing about my personal approach to investing. Because when you're not disturbed by these ups and downs, like whether it's happiness or distressed, up or down, the market being greedy or, selling and buying and all of that, then I think you can be steady. And when you can be steady, it's not just about becoming, reaching some end goal of enlightenment or something like that. It's more about just being able to maintain your peace of mind and your portfolio as well. Because when I'm able to maintain my peace of mind, I'm more likely to be able to maintain my consistent, disciplined investing approach. Because the truth is, people only lose money when they sell. But in most cases, when you're just consistently buying over time, it's very hard to lose money. If you believe in the growth of an economy, if you believe in India as a country, if you're investing in India, for example, over the long period of time, then these ups and downs won't really be visible over the long period of time, right? So if you were investing before the pandemic and you continued investing in the pandemic and you're still investing, you won't even know what happened in the pandemic. Now, there is a memory, but the stock charts, the equity charts, your portfolio charts don't really know, right? So rule number 4 is to find your approach and go with its flow. This is so important because recently someone told me, a lot of times I got a comment about people asking me, why don't you invest in the quant funds? And recently there was a case, someone commented and said, actually comments, I'm learning a lot about, news because I don't watch news. So this is really helping me to understand what's happening in the market. But then someone was praising me to not having quant in my portfolio. And that was related to the case with quant. Now, my approach was simple. I just didn't feel that I'm going to stick to 1,000 years, to quant for 1,000 years, because their fundamental strategy itself was a little bit, off for me. So if I have my approach and I stick with the flow, then in most cases over a long period of time, I'll be set. And I just don't want to be set for myself. I want this portfolio to just get passed on the generations. So it doesn't really matter who this portfolio belongs to. It's more about showing and implementing a process to get returns. Now, this sounds weird when you're attached personally to a portfolio, but when you're not attached, which is something we discussed in rule number 1, that's the core rule, then you're able to think of passing on the portfolio to generations. I mean, even if it goes out to the public, if the portfolio just gets distributed magically to the public, it'll be fun to watch that happen. So just being detached is, I think, really the core principle to keep in mind throughout all of these other rules as well. But whatever your approach is, just go with the flow. There's a saying that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain, and I don't subscribe like the path to the top of the mountain, or I don't actually prescribe any path for anyone. My videos are simply, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm calculating it, this is my principles, this is my rules. I'm just sharing, right? So someone commented recently saying, if I was you, not even that, he said you should sell everything and put everything in a small cap fund and you'll make more money, right? So that's the approach that I don't want to take. I mean, not about the small cap fund, but I don't want to take the approach of telling you to sell everything, put it in an index fund, or, follow whatever philosophies of investing that I follow. Because maybe you'll get to the top of the mountain faster than me. I don't mind that. I'll be happy if you are able to do that. It's not a race. It's just a personal portfolio, right? So we are building this portfolio. It's not a race that you have to build a bigger portfolio than me, faster than me, or slower than me. For me, it's not about beating the market as well. I've made a separate video on this of why I don't want to beat the market, because the market has no relation with my personal goals, and I don't really care what the market is doing. I do follow the market. I do track the market, in the sense like my portfolio tracks the market for me because I'm an index investor, but I don't try to beat it as such, because I just don't see any value of beating the market in real life. So anyways, top of the mountain is whatever your goal is. For me, it's just happiness and freedom. So I always feel like I'm already there. I just have this investing portfolio that I'm building for the sake of proving that the process works to myself and the future generation. So that's just simply the core summary of all of this. Finally, it's going to take time. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Lao Tzu. It's very interesting because when we are in a rush, we are trying to find some short wins, quick wins. We are trying to find some, micro caps. Maybe we are trying to do some, crypto. And I'm not against any of these investing methodologies. I just want to stick to an approach where, like there is a saying, if you were to build your wealth portfolio and you have to do 1,000 times again, can you follow an approach where 999 times out of those 1,000 times your portfolio will be successful? And I think the approach that I'm following is that kind of an approach, in that 1 out of 1,000 pure sheer bad luck situation, just keeping that aside, I think 999 times, if I had to do it all over again, it would still work, whichever market cycle I'm in, how many market up and downs I see. I'm just tracking the market, and I'm pretty well diversified geographically. I have asset diversification outside of equity as well. Now I just have to just keep consistently investing and think more about growing my business, because that's where I think most of the magic will happen, when I'm able to grow the business, right? So those are some of the spiritual learnings. There is rule number 5, the last one, which I wanted to leave everyone with, because this is actually something that I am even working on building even more. Like the first 4 rules, I think I am already in that frame of mind to have accepted those and implemented those in my life. But I'm now more and more working on approaching investing as a form of selfless action. And this means I don't want to use this portfolio as such for any personal benefit. Yes, I might use it for my children if they need from time to time. I might borrow against it with a loan without trying to touch too much of the money here. This also helps me not worry about things like tax, not worry about things like platform fees. A lot of people, actually, this is something I've never worried about, but I really don't care how much of my money now is going into fund houses, is going into Zerodha as a platform. How much are they charging? Because I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to Zerodha for, the founders would have just thought about the idea, and I'm so grateful that they thought about the idea and built it. I'm so grateful that fund houses, made these funds that we could invest in. I'm so grateful that, all of these Nippon India and ICICI and Kotak and all of these fund houses are building algorithms that help, investors put money in index funds. So I'm grateful for Kite, Coin, and all of these things. And I think just giving back to them makes sense. So if they are getting a percentage, I'm not so worried about it anymore. I was never worried about platform fees and other small things, but I was looking at it as an expense or a deduction from my portfolio. Now I'm not worried about it at all. So that's like really an interesting way to look at these things. So my core takeaway is that I invest in the market and then I'm able to forget about the market. And that's where I think the beauty of being able to enjoy life and all of the things that life's experiences have to offer really comes out. So those are some of the spiritual lessons that I use to build and grow this portfolio. I think more importantly, not just that it helps me keep consistently investing, but it also helps me be happy and peaceful. I think that's what I really want. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.